Hi, I'm Dr. Robin Koslowitz, YouTube's post-traumatic parenting expert. Have you ever asked yourself, how can I give my kids a healthy childhood when mine was anything but? Or maybe you're trying to break generational cycles, but you're aware that you know how you'd like to parent, but you don't quite know how. Welcome. We're post-traumatic parents and we get it. Today, we're going to talk about spanking and some unintended consequences of spanking that parents might not realize spanking causes. But first, if you like this content, if this is the kind of content that helps you, please click subscribe below so that you don't miss another episode. So, a longitudinal study of children found that spanking lowers social competence and raises externalizing behaviors, which means spanking actually teaches children the very lessons we are trying to unteach by spanking them. Spanking lowers their ability to have self-control, and it lowers their ability to manage their emotions productively. So this was a longitudinal study, which means it followed children over several years. The study was published in a journal called Child Abuse and Neglect. This is a peer-reviewed journal, which means it's not that some researcher can just, write whatever they want in an article and just post it somewhere. Peer-reviewed research means that other researchers will read the article, and if they find problems in it, if there's a mistake, if it's not done properly, if there's an error in the measurement, if there's a mathematical error, if there's an error in the premise, like the researcher is saying something means something else, but maybe it doesn't, the peer reviewers will look at that and the peer reviewers will say, nope, that's a mistake. We cannot put that in this journal. You need to fix that error before we'll put it in. So in general, when we look at research from a peer-reviewed journal, we trust it more because we know that it's being vetted by other experts. And simply for the self-interest of the experts, peer-reviewed journals is kind of how geeks fight. So it's kind of how people can show how smart they are and how academic rivalries can happen. So for their own self-interest, a peer reviewer really does want to find the errors in a study. And the researcher really doesn't want to make any errors because their colleagues will catch them out. So many times when I talk about spanking, I hear things like, yeah, but the researcher could be lying, or the researcher could make up whatever they want, or they could interpret their letters, they could interpret their numbers, they can cherry pick their data. The peer review process really does correct for a lot of that. So in this particular study, what they were comparing was children who were being spanked, children who had been spanked within the past week, to children who had never been spanked. And what they were doing was, this study was conducted in Canada, and what they were doing was they were questioning parents about their parenting practices, specifically about spanking, and asking, have you ever spanked your children? And 68% of the parents in the study said yes. Have you spanked your child, the child in this study, within the past week? 28% of parents said yes. And then what they did is they wanted to match the children as well as they could, so that a child from a similar socioeconomic status, like similar background, the family earns a similar amount of money, similar amount of children, the parents have similar occupations, the same gender, right? They're comparing children who are as similar as possible in two different groups. The ones who were spanked, the ones who had never been spanked. So that was the treatment and the control group. They were different. The variable that they were different about was spanked, not spanked. And specifically what they were looking at was, how do these children solve emotional problems? What do they do when they're frustrated? What do they do when they're not getting along? The typical problems of kindergarten, right? He wants the red truck, I want the red truck. She's taking all the crayons. We both want the swing at the same time. Do we solve that problem by trying to emotionally understand the other person, understand where they're coming from, come up with some sort of a solution? First, it will be your turn, and then it will be my turn. I will count to 100, and then it will be my turn. Calling over a teacher, he grabbed the truck away from me, right? Coming up with a way of handling the problem. You can play with the truck and I'll play with the truck. Let's play with the truck together. That would be pro-social coping. That's what we want to teach children to do. When someone grabs the truck away from you, the idea would be, let's figure out a way to play together. Let's figure out a fair and equitable way of sharing. She grabbed the swing away from me. Okay, so when is it my turn? Right? I shove her off the swing. None of us are having fun. And I'm using my emotions to solve a problem in a not pro-social way. Like I'm solving the problem by attacking, I'm being aggressive, not by being cooperative. It doesn't earn me many friends. It's not the skill we generally want to teach. So what the researchers found was that the children who were never spanked had much better pro-social coping. They were able to think through a problem, figure out a better way to share, figure out when to involve the adults, figure out how to manage their emotions and not lose control. You know, that going from 0 to 60 in a second, they were able to do that. They were able to more calmly, they're still kindergartners, they're still very little, but they were able to more calmly manage their emotions. So the researchers were looking at two things: children who had ever been spanked and children whose parents said they were spanked within the past week. Now, a year later, a year after asking the parents, have you ever spanked your children? Have you spanked your child in the past week? The children who had been spanked, and we're going a year later, so this happened, these questions were asked when the children were 5, and now we're measuring how these children are socially at age 6. It's a year later. The children who had been spanked, and specifically the children who had been spanked in the past week, had much higher incidences of externalizing behavior, meaning much higher instances of hitting, fighting, acting out in the classroom, in the schoolyard, with their friends, in the family. The children who had not been spanked had a lower incidence of that. The children who had been spanked had much lower ability to read other people's facial expressions, to understand social settings and social situations, and to have executive functioning skills, which are the skills that allow us to plan and problem solve. So here's what's really interesting about this study. A lot of parents say, I need to spank my kid because I need to teach him he can't do that. My son grabbed a toy truck away from another kid and bopped him over the head with it. My daughter shoved another kid off a swing. I need to teach her that she can't do that. When I was a kid and I did things that wrong like that, my mom spanked me to teach me that I am not allowed to do that. But what spanking does is it lowers self-control. So self-control is what I need if I want to control my anger and another kid is on the swing and I'm not going to push them off the swing. I have to control myself. In the moment, I'm mad. If someone grabs my toy away from me, right? So if I have my phone and someone grabs it away from me and I just want to slap them and grab it back, I need self-control to use words and say, that's my phone. It's not okay to take it. Can I have it back, please? Right? I need a lot of self-control to do that. I need self-control not to overreact when I'm frustrated. The teacher gives out a math paper and it's hard. I need self-control to not crumple it into a ball and throw it across the classroom. I need some self-control in order to say, okay, this looks hard, but I can do hard things. I'm going to raise my hand. I'm going to ask the teacher for help because I don't quite know how to do this. That's self-control. So if I spank a child and that lowers their self-control, then I am not teaching them to have self-control. I'm taking away their brain's ability to have self-control. Think about it like a car. If I have a car and I want to teach somebody to stop whenever it's dangerous, but I weaken the brakes, then can they stop? Even if I'm yelling at them, stop, stop, stop. The brakes are weak. They can't stop because they don't have brakes. Spanking kids damages the brakes in their brain that allow them to have self-control. So the more you're spanking because you're trying to teach a lesson, the less self-control the child is going to have, because you're taking those breaks away from their brain. The more you're spanking the child, and I don't know that it's those specific, I don't know how many spankings are going to do that, although there's some research that suggests that even being spanked not all that often can have detrimental effects. But if you're spanking a child and you're lowering their social competence, so I need to teach Timmy not to grab away his friend's toy truck, right? So Timmy grabs Donnie's toy truck and they're fighting. So I want to teach Timmy to not do that, right? I want to teach him how to use his words and say, can I play with the truck, or let's play together, right? I want to teach him how to do something like that. And I lower his social competence. I weaken the part of his brain that reads social situations, understands social cues, thinks in words rather than in actions, so that spanking is weakening the skills that I'm supposedly trying to teach him. So spanking, aside from the fact that there's research that shows that children react as though they're being abused when they're spanked, aside from the fact that there's research that shows it lowers the self-control of the child, spanking also isn't effective in teaching the very things and the very skills that we want to and that we are trying to teach. If you're trying to teach pro-social behavior, Timmy, don't grab the truck away and whack Donnie over the head with it. If you're trying to teach self-control, you really want to rip up that paper that the teacher gave you, but you're going to take a deep breath and wait for the teacher to explain it. You can do this. It's hard, but you're going to be able to do this. Spanking teaches exactly the opposite. So it's also not effective. It doesn't actually do what we think it does. The child doesn't get spanked and then, so you spank the child and they say, oh, yeah, from now on, I want to be pro-social and kind. From now on, I want to share toys and I want to never be violent. When we model something for a child like violence, the child copies violence. So if I slap you because you grabbed the toy truck away, you've now learned that slapping is a viable way to solve a problem. And I've reinforced that in your brain. I've taken away your self-control breaks. I have taken away your social competence, some of your ability to think about other people's emotion and other people's states and which behaviors are appropriate in which situations. I've lowered all of that, which is what I'm supposedly trying to teach you. I've taught you that violence is the answer, that might does make right, that the bigger person gets to hurt the smaller person when they're mad. I've taught you that. I have not taught you to have self-control. I have not taught you to be more pro-social. Maybe I've taught you to be afraid in social situations that you're going to get overstimulated and then someone's going to come and hit you. So then I've taught you that the social world is threatening. Well, if the social world is threatening, I'm going to be on high alert in the social world. If I'm on high alert in the social world, I'm more likely to be violent. I'm more likely to hit my friend, throw them off the swing, grab the toy away, because I'm on edge in a threatening situation. And when I'm on edge in a threatening situation and I have a high amount of adrenaline inside of me, that situation, yet I could still have fun. It could be loud and engaging and overstimulating because there's a lot of adrenaline. Think of how you feel on a roller coaster. But what I'm not doing is learning how to manage the social situation in a calm manner. I'm not learning how to, in a pro-social way, figure out a way that Donnie and I can play with the toy truck together and we can both have fun and we could cooperate and collaborate. I'm not learning any of that. And the more under threat I am, the more likely I am to get violent, the more likely I am to get aggressive, the more likely I am to use the wrong skills for coping with frustration in the situation, simply because I'm under threat now, because that's what I've been taught. Social situations get overstimulating and then somebody hits me. But what I haven't learned is social situations can be safe and fun and collaborative, and I can cooperate with my friend and we can share the truck. We can play together. We can pick a different game. I can wait my turn. That's an important skill for the rest of your life. I can wait my turn until it's my turn to use the swing. I can smile at my friend while she's on the swing, and I can share in her enjoyment so that she's swinging and I'm watching her swing and giggling with her. And now it's my turn to swing and she's going to watch me swing. And that makes it even more fun. I'm learning how to be a human amongst humans, right? I'm not learning any of that. So this idea that spanking is important because it's going to teach a lesson is just plain false. Spanking doesn't teach a lesson. Spanking removes the very important lessons from this child's brain that we were trying to instill. Some parents say to me, I need to spank my kids because I need to make sure that they instantly obey me, because what if something dangerous happens? So I just want to unpack that a little bit. We do sometimes have to have an emergency signal in case of danger. So very often, think about an army, right? Armies drill and train soldiers, and they're trained to respond to commands in an instant. If they're told to stand at attention, immediately everybody stands at attention, right? And it's very quick. Why? Because in an army, they're under threat. The chances are something dangerous could happen at any moment. So therefore, we have to train them to be instantly obedient, because that could be the difference between life and death. I really hope your home environment, my home environment, is not threatening in that way. I really hope my children are not, and anybody's children are not, at that constant edge of danger where I need instant obedience because we're in a war zone right now. A home should not be a war zone. A home should be a safe, friendly, healthy, happy, comforting place. So yeah, if you do have a kid who is perhaps very inquisitive, who runs around a lot, who gets themselves into trouble, it might be worthwhile to train in a stop signal. When I used to teach self-defense, when I used to take self-defense in a lot of different martial arts gyms, you get trained in a stop signal where, let's say, if somebody taps you, you immediately freeze. If someone yells a word like freeze, everybody in the gym freezes in place. Very often when we're learning dangerous techniques, perhaps we're learning how to break a chokehold, perhaps we're learning how to throw somebody to the ground safely, any of those kind of techniques, we might drill, before we're even going to learn a chokehold, we're going to drill a stop signal. We're going to drill the instant I say freeze, everyone freezes. And we're going to practice that a lot of times, because just in case I am across the gym floor and I see something dangerous happening all the way across the mat, and I can't get there in time, if I yell freeze and everybody freezes, that will include those kids all the way down there on the other ends of the mat, and that potentially dangerous situation could be averted. I might see someone is applying a choke and her, sparring partner is actually losing consciousness. So I train in that stop signal. So if you have a child who's very rambunctious, who does dangerous things, you might want to, and it could be really fun, train a stop signal, right? You're going to run around and you're going to run around and we're going to laugh and giggle. And the minute I say freeze, you're going to freeze in place, right? The minute I say stop, whatever the word you're going to use is, you're going to stop. And we train that. So run around, roll around on the floor, giggle, 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 stop, right? We're going to jump, 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 stop. If you have that very rambunctious child, sure, train them in a stop signal. But you notice what I haven't done is slap them, hurt them, inflicted pain on them, humiliated them. I trained the child that when I yell stop or freeze or whatever our code word is, they freeze. Because yeah, I've parented rambunctious kids who were the ones who would climb to the highest possible branch on a tree, the ones who just want to, balance on a fence and skate on thin ice and hang upside down 6 feet above the ground. And sometimes you do have to get that kid to immediately stop. That doesn't mean you need to spank them to instill instant obedience. You don't need to do that in order to train a child. If you have that rambunctious child that needs to learn how to stop in an emergency situation, maybe they're running headlong and they're about to fall down a flight of stairs at the mall. So you train them with that freeze signal. You can do that if you really believe your child's under danger. Children don't need to be so instantly obedient in a home that isn't in a war zone. in a home that isn't actively dangerous. We don't raise children in homes that feel like we're at the edge of disaster at all times. Armies don't, at least armies that are ethical, don't take 6-year-olds into their rank. 6-year-olds need to live in protected, sheltered, safe environments. And perhaps when they're adults, they want to serve their country, sure. But at age 6, they don't need to be that instantly obedient because they're not in danger. And like I said, if they're a rambunctious kid who can be in danger, train in a stop signal. It's a very useful skill to have because you might notice danger and you can stop them. That has nothing to do with spanking. I can't think of a single instance or place or time where being hit is a natural and logical consequence of someone's behavior. The only time I can think about that is if you're learning how to be a boxer, you're getting trained in boxing, and you drop your hands, someone might punch you in the face, right? That's the only time, if you're in actual martial arts training, that perhaps getting hit is a natural and logical consequence for something. Getting hit is not a natural and logical consequence for hitting another kid. Being told, let's think about this. What would be a better way to handle the fact that Timmy grabbed your truck away? You need to hit him, or is there something else we could have done? Maybe the consequence is we take away the truck. Maybe the consequence is Timmy has to go home. It's not, we're getting overstimulated playing together, so playtime is over. There's a lot of natural and logical consequences to bashing, your twin brother over the head with a toy truck that doesn't involve being hit. Harming and hurting children harshly, I think we're going to find a lot more research that's going to tell us that spanking is even more and more detrimental than we think. But aside from detrimental, this study is showing it's also ineffective. It doesn't teach the skills that the parent who is spanking thinks that they are teaching. So why do it when there are so many better alternatives? If you like this content, if you want to know more alternatives to spanking, if you're a cycle breaker but you don't quite know how to break the cycle, hi, welcome. Please comment below with your questions. Let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know what questions you have about cycle breaking, about parenting differently than how you were parented, so that I can generate new videos answering those questions, unpacking some psychology research about this, so that we can all understand it better. Please check out the post-traumatic parenting community on Instagram. You can find us at Dr. Kozlowitz Psychology. Check out the post-traumatic parenting podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.